Hi everyone, good to be here. I have a very different type of presentation. I have 60 slides, and so 15 seconds each. Let's see how this goes. Hopefully this thing works. So hi everyone, my name is Marko. People also call me Kasi, which is number 8 in Finnish for some reason. When I started my career or my kind of life as a startup entrepreneur, I really didn't know anything. I didn't know any people who had exited a company or anything like that, and really had to start from scratch. But actually, even before I founded my first company, I went to the Helsinki University to study computer science. I wanted to become a programmer, but I forgot to send my acceptance of the place. So actually, when I tried to get into the university, they said that you hadn't accepted, you have to apply again next year. And that was a bummer. I had already moved to Helsinki, so I decided to apply again. But while waiting to get to university, within that year, I founded my first company with my brother out of boredom. And I wanted to be the product guy. I wanted to be the coder. I had coded since age 6 or 7. And however, my brother told me, could you also be the CEO? You know, I can do everything else. You are the product guy and the CEO. And I was super unorganized person. I didn't think that I could do it, but I decided that, well, I'll do it if you, as my brother, found a company with me. I'll do it. And little did I know how I would not like it. However, anyway, then everything started great. I studied programming a lot of things. My brother would do the sales. We built custom ERP systems and all kinds of crazy things. He was in robotics, so he was building some hardware. I was building software for it. This was in 2001, 2002. Through some kind of opportunistic things, we somehow ended up importing spare parts for Chinese scooters to around 100,000 scooters per year that was sold in Finland. Every single spare part was sold by us, and we built a reseller network of over 200 resellers, and it was a big boom in Chinese scooter market. How we ended up there, too long story, but we did like 15 different things at the same time just because entrepreneurship was fun. And so at some point, we couldn't build more warehouses. We were running out of money, had to scale too quickly, and so we ended up selling the company. We did a pretty good exit for it, not being a software company. And around that time, in 2005, TechCrunch was created, and I was one of the first readers. I started to get super excited, reading about things, stories from Silicon Valley, scaling startups, venture capital, all these things. They were totally new to me. And then I made a friend who would become my co-founder later on, who had actually been part of the dot-com bubble and had raised money, had scaled his company. And he said that, hey, I like your skills in software. Why don't we do something together? And he said that I could be the kind of brains of the operations, and I can help us raise money. You can be the product guy if you also can be the CEO. And I was like, oh, not again. Like, I don't want to be the CEO. You are super organized. And somehow I ended up taking that role, and I hated it. And I was at the time living in Southeast Asia, doing some business there. And we had this idea, or I had this idea. I had a little bit of money. I was putting seed money into some startups and learning how to do that. And there wasn't really organized way or a lot of information back then in 2005, 2006. So I came up with this idea of how about some kind of this platform where everybody can put a little bit money and find the companies to basically equity crowdfunding, but that term didn't exist then, and I think we were too early. We were the first equity crowdfunding company in the world, I believe. A lot of regulation, they shut us off, didn't work out. However, I didn't mind because I was working on like 7, 8 other startups at the same time. I was really a serial entrepreneur, maybe in a bad sense, if you will. I was the product guy and coding things for all those different things, and at the same time, I was CEO in all but one of them, and I hated my life. And so Then I decided to focus. I took one of those companies and I said that this is the best one, let's do this one. I created a board of advisors. I knew that my thoughts were way too many than what the person could do, and I had to focus. And so I got a board of advisors as well as some investors and friends and family, and decided, okay, this is something we do with the focus. The idea was to build a mobile fan club. This was in 2009, immediately after Apple published iPhone with apps, and I thought that that's going to be huge. And founded it with Finland's #1 platinum selling artist, and I thought that together we can do, we have synergies here. Basically, the idea was that, artists and different people, famous people could communicate with their fans through an app. And it was based out of these modules, maybe 50 different modules, from audio player to discussion wall and all these things that you could combine and very quickly in a few minutes build an app, and customized, of course, to look like your band or whatever it was. It was a good start. We signed artists from EMI and Warner Music, and people started to get excited. Big Brother TV series built the app with us, and so many things were coming our way. And I was like, okay, this is the right time to go to San Francisco. Now we will scale this thing. Ended up spending around half a year in Los Angeles, and we even got to talk to the Disney company and many big ones. And we were like, okay, this is going to be $1 billion company now. Until the higher we went and the bigger the artists were, the more they said that, could we add this gamification thing, or could you do this small nuanced change to your module? And basically the whole idea that was kind of the modules, that was the problem, because everybody wanted to be the unique little thing, and it just didn't work out. And I was like, okay, this modular thing just doesn't work. Let's go back to the drawing table. And it was a really hard kind of obstacle. So we got another idea. We were playing with how could we overcome this and not depend on these modules or modularity or whatever in software, and allow more expressiveness, build something that would allow people to build the fan clubs with even more expressiveness. And then it went from, let's forget about the fan club thing. Can we make something that would allow people to build really rapidly software? And it's just started to go further and further. And at some point, the fan club, we didn't even think about it anymore. I hired a couple of guys with the last monies that I had from university that I had met, 7 years back. Two smartest people I knew. I said that, I have this hypothesis, but I don't have enough skills to build it. Can you do it? And I gave them 6 months, and they cracked it. They built something that I didn't believe was doable. And with that piece of technology, I won't go into details, but it was related to client technology. We then decided that we can take over the world. So we gave stock options to the investors who had believed in our previous idea, because we thought that it was fair, because that inspired this one. Founded a new company, moved to San Francisco for good. Basically, the idea was that now in this Silicon Valley mentality, we can learn everything we need to learn, not to make the same mistakes again, gather a lot of smart people around us. And I really felt like being part of a ecosystem or community. This was prior to Slush and all these things that we have nowadays in Finland, and a lot of things happening in Scandinavia. But I felt that for the first time I found like a flock where I belong. I was positively surprised by how so many super successful entrepreneurs who had just exited like a huge exit from their company were the next day in a cafe coding and telling about their next idea. And I was like, this is a world that breathes like the kind of thing that I want to be also part of. So I decided to stay there for a long time. And so for around 6 months, the two friends of mine from the university and we were building the next software and trying to suck as much of the Silicon Valley type of structure into our heads as possible. And then finally, something that I had hoped would one day happen, the TechCrunch, the same media that brought me into this whole idea of SaaS startups and scaling and VCs and all of that, they published our product launch, and that was super exciting to us. It started path upwards. Our numbers were scaling. And at some point, it was basically a tool for developers. So a lot of developers were signing up, tens of thousands of them. And at some point, one of my advisors told me that, hey, you should talk with this one guy. He said that he's interested to hear about your technology. And so there I went to Palo Alto to a cafeteria. For 3 hours at least, I was just demoing the product, not asking him any questions because I was so excited that he wanted to know so much about my product. And then I was like, okay, so there's the demo. Thank you. See you again. And then he says that, no, actually, I'm an angel investor, and I would like to invest into your company. Do you need money? I'm like, yeah, I need money. And so there the conversation went on, and within just a couple of weeks, he invested into the company, and then we got other VCs to join. Little did I know at that time that he was one of the highest profile super angels in Silicon Valley, but I was just so excited about explaining about my product, and apparently that was something that he really liked. So then I would end up now being able to really focus on the product and also still being the CEO, which I hated. We were scaling things, and actually we got to 200,000 developers around the world using our product in just, I think, 18 months, which was tremendous. I don't think any ecosystem had grown that fast. And for reasons I won't go into this presentation because that would be another 15 minutes at least, we ended up doing a 180-degree pivot. Something happened in the market, somebody acquired something and made it for free, what we had planned to monetize. And so we just decided to go to a totally new path, which is enterprise. And that was kind of home to me because in my first company with my brother, we had built a lot of systems for the enterprise. So I was like, yeah, going back home. And we got some investments actually here from Estonia, from Karma Ventures. They saw what we were building, and that was awesome. And we grew the company, started to get big enterprise clients also globally. And for also reasons I don't have time to go into, we then, well, I can share this much, that while serving the big enterprise and building the product, honing it, we got some breakthrough ideas that we thought would actually be an order of magnitude bigger if they could be built. And we did some initial R&D and skunkworks, and we realized, okay, this can work, this can be huge. And so kind of without ever agreeing to go into this kind of stealth mode, we little by little went into a stealth mode again, full R&D, just working with a couple of clients, so maybe 50 clients that we had in the enterprise. And we thought that it would be maybe 1 year, 2 year journey. Ended up being 4 years in stealth mode. And that's like, if you ask from startup, that's forever. And anyway, finally this year, we released the product. And it's super awesome product, I think. I don't think there's been anything like it. TechCrunch covered it. Again, I was like, yeah, my favorite media covered it. And then it's been skyrocketing ever since. But I don't talk about our product here. I'm talking more about the journey. And now, at the moment, we are literally taking over the world. There are people in, I could go on a lot about what's happening in the product space and what we've done. But basically, kids around the world are for the first time building their totally own software without ever having programmed, and good enough software that Apple App Store accepts it as software, to their stores. And it's changing the world. We have people in Rwanda, founding physical training centers to teach kids how to build software to make success and become entrepreneurs. And it's really awesome. But I won't go too much into that because I wanted to still come back to this thing of how I've always wanted to be a product guy and ended up being a CEO. I don't know why I always felt kind of out of my league when I was given the role of, can you also be the CEO? Maybe I fell into that because I had taken that ticket the first time. So if you don't want to be a CEO for your whole life, never take the first time. But also, I've been thinking about it recently that even though I would really like to be more about product, there's so many things I don't like about the role of being a founder and CEO. But I think it was Steve Jobs who quoted Alan Kay like 30 years ago that people who truly care about their software, they should build their own hardware. And in the same way, in the recent days, I've been thinking that if you are an entrepreneur, if you founded your company, and you're the product guy, you're the person or girl, and you're the person who has the vision for how the product should be. These startups, SaaS startups and product startups, they are so holistically all about the product that if the CEO does not know the product thoroughly and cannot guide the communications and the team and all that stuff around the product, I think it's much easier to fail. And if you happen to be a founder and founding a company and are considering of maybe taking an outside CEO or something like that, think twice. Being able to control the strategy and all those things that are all interconnected to the product is very important, and at least the person should understand everything about your product if you decide to have that split role. That's just my take. There's probably a million people who would disagree. Thanks. That's all for this. Thanks.
Thank you, Marko. Very cool story. I do want to ask, though, what's your product?
It is a product that it's the world's first professional no-code software. Typically, if you think no-code, so place where you just drag and drop things together, typically those are meant for building a very simplistic, predefined type of template apps or something like that. And we have built a software where literally €1 million projects, big projects, system critical, business critical, even 5-star apps or games can be built without ever writing a single line of code. And it's free to use for everybody except for enterprise. So there's that, yeah.
Interesting. My partner is a fan. I will tell him all about it.
Awesome.
Are you still the CEO?
Yes. I don't hate it now so much anymore.
What changed?
Getting more professional people around me to help take care of those things that I hated. So maybe it's just being a small company CEO where you have to literally do everything.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And a final question to you, unless there is someone who wants to raise their hand in the meanwhile. Katri mentioned before you the importance of having the supportive structure or supportive person in the beginning of your journey or during your journey. Yes. There are many people watching us online also now. Yeah. Maybe you want to shout out to someone who has been super supportive for you.
Sure. I mean, there's so many. Antti Hannula, my first co-founder, besides my brother. Henri Vähäkainen, my current co-founder, who's also part of the fan club. Obviously, our advisors, Pekka Pärnänen, Ari Tulla, many others who... Ari introduced me to Christian Sekestrel, who was our first investor in AppGyver in Palo Alto Cafe. And so a lot of people being around us, of course, nowadays, Karma Ventures, Tommy and Marley, Margus, Open Ocean Capital, Patrick, a lot of people. I mean, it's a huge support network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. I hope they heard that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your story.
Thank you.